If you're a perfectionist, you've been lying to yourself because you've been telling yourself that these perfectionist tendencies mean you're going to be successful, mean you're going to live a happy, successful life. You think that this is the path to success. Your perfectionism is just a coping mechanism. It's just a disguise. It's just a mask. It's a tool that we all use to avoid our biggest fears, our deepest rooted fears becoming a reality. That fear of uncertainty, that fear of not being good enough, that fear of rejection, that fear of failure. But if you're telling yourself that by being perfect, you will avoid any of these from becoming a reality, that's a lie. But it's also just a super unhappy and miserable and exhausting way to live. I can understand and speak to that from my many personal experiences that I'm going to share with you in this episode. But most importantly, I'm also going to share with you the strategies and shifts that I've learned to overcome my perfectionism, to live in the imperfect, to embrace it, and to live a happier and less stressful life that way. And these are shifts that can make your life so much better too. But first, I'm going to dive into a little bit more about my personal instances where I've noticed perfectionism really impact my life the most. My entire perspective changed around how I live my life once I realized that my perfectionist tendencies was really just a coping mechanism, again, for all these fears. For so long, I was telling myself that if I was perfect, if I did things perfectly, if I showed up perfectly, if I avoided revealing any flaws and making any mistakes, then I could predict life. Then there'd be no uncertainty. Then I would never fail. Then I would never be rejected. I would never risk being hurt or feeling like I'm not enough. But again, literally all it was doing was making me anxious, making me less happy. It was making me dwell on scarcity and lack mindset because I was constantly focusing on the ways I was imperfect and not doing enough. It was making me scrutinize all of my flaws. It was making me nitpick the things that I could improve rather than focus on all the growth and progress that I've made. It was making me feel constantly on edge and living in fear of being imperfect or having my guard up and having a wall up in my relationships because I was constantly trying to make sure everything and everyone fit into like my perfect standards and my perfect little box. It was making me overthink and scrutinize things that really don't matter in the grand scheme. And also, honestly, it was causing me to show up in my relationships in a way that I don't value, in a way that was kind of rigid and kind of controlling and inflexible and unloving at times. So to get into more specific personal examples, one of the biggest ways that I've seen perfectionism rise up in my life has been with my relationship with diet and body image. So I've always definitely been very healthy and focused on eating a healthy diet and exercising daily and wanting to look and feel a certain way. But in my senior year of college, I was very unhappy. I was super anxious. I was just definitely going through a lot. And this was also into the pandemic. So naturally, that just got worse. And during that time, I was very restrictive with what I ate. I tried to have a perfect diet. I avoided eating or doing anything unhealthy. I overexercised, underate. And this mission to have the perfect diet, to have the perfect body, was absolutely, looking in retrospect, 100% a coping mechanism for my internal turmoil, for my internal anxiety to try to cope with that. I was telling myself that, okay, maybe if I look and seem perfect on the outside and control this external circumstance, then internally I can feel better. And what is an external circumstance that's easy to control? Yeah, diet, exercise. Easy. But of course, this only added to my anxiety and made me less happy, right? They literally just fed on each other. It's like, because of my anxiety, I went down this route of perfectionism and tried to perfect my diet. And then in going down that route, my anxiety and unhappiness only escalated. So in trying to have the perfect diet, not only was I not eating enough and so not feeling physically good and energized, I was constantly stressed trying to maintain it all the time. I was constantly thinking meals ahead, trying to make sure that I could maintain that restriction, that nothing would impose on that perfect diet and body bubble. And to be fully honest, thinking back, like it was really consuming and I was just really unhappy. I was just living out of fear of being, quote, unhealthy or gaining weight even, that I wasn't even focused on enjoying the meals. I was more living out of fear to avoid any imperfect elements creeping in on my diet and my wellness routine. A more recent example is posting on social media. So when I started posting on social media for the podcast, definitely felt this desire to be perfect, or fear of showing up imperfectly, I should say. And it's what caused me to hold off from starting posting for so long because I was scared of rejection. I was scared to reveal any flaws. I was scared to show up in a way that people might judge. I was scared of making mistakes, of failure, and having that on social media for people to see. It was terrifying. I felt like if I didn't show up perfectly and create the perfect post or the perfect episode, whatever, that I couldn't share it because what? It has my flaws. Like, you can actually see me in that. I can't post that. Like, I don't look perfect in that, or I don't sound perfect in that, or I didn't say that in the perfect way. This is what would be going through my mind. And then more often than not, I would either retake it 25 times or delete it and just not post it at all. And I often still struggle with this. I know it's a very real thing that a lot of us feel. And again, it wasn't serving me at all. What it often led me to do was just not post at all, or add stress and anxiety to my life because I was chasing this impossible standard when really I should have embraced the imperfect and the messy, because taking imperfect action is better than not taking action at all because we're waiting for perfection. But now I have so much clarity in retrospect on both of these tendencies and patterns that came up in both of these areas in my life. And I now have shifts and reminders that have allowed me to work past these feelings, to notice them when they come up, to notice those perfectionist tendencies when I get triggered. And I come back to these shifts and reminders that I'm about to share with you to overcome them, to live in the imperfect. And it's made my life so much better, so much less anxiety inducing. And honestly, it's a lot happier way to live. So here we go. First one, perfectionists aren't fun. Ask yourself this question. What kind of person do you want to be? And then ask yourself a follow-up question. When you're striving to be absolutely perfect, are you showing up as that person that you want to be? Is that who you want to show up as in your relationships, in your life? Is that who you want to be? When I think back to that version of myself that was super restrictive eating food, for example, or was just trying to be perfect at a lot of different areas in her life, she was rigid. She was inflexible. She was high maintenance. She was not easygoing. She was often anxious and closed off. She was constantly trying to control or change people in order to fit her perfect bubble and the perfect idea that she had in her head. She wasn't the kind and open and loving person that I hope to show up as in my relationships, let alone someone that I honestly would want to be around. Like, do I really want to be the person that needs to go to that specific restaurant that has that perfect healthy meal on the menu? Do I really want to be that high maintenance person? Or do I really want to project my stress and anxiety onto people because I'm constantly focusing and stressing about flaws or imperfections, or letting myself get consumed by that and exuding that energy onto the people in my life? Energy is real and we do radiate that, and people can detect that. Or do I really want to feel like I have to hide all of my flaws and imperfections around the people I'm closest to in life, around my friends, around my family? That's not who I want to show up as. But that's what perfectionism is. It often means you're more rigid, a lot more particular, very controlling, often in that scarcity mindset, having tunnel vision, right, on that perfect destination. But living imperfectly, that means being open. That means being flexible. It means being easygoing. It means being grateful and abundant for what is great. It means being more loving and understanding and compassionate. I know the version that I want to show up as is that imperfect version. That is reason enough for me to let go of these perfectionist tendencies, because I value so much showing up as a good person for the people I love, for my friends and family. And I know that the perfectionist version of me is not that person. So showing up imperfectly is actually helping my relationships. And if you're striving for perfection, that's the person you're going to be showing up as in your relationships. So if your well-being and your happiness isn't enough, think about how you're showing up for the people that you love. And know that in letting go of trying to be perfect and actually being imperfect, you're actually helping your relationships and showing up as a better version of yourself. Okay, second point. Living imperfectly actually just means living authentically. So honestly, a motto or a theme in my life lately is embrace the messy. Something I've never honestly been good at. And if you have perfectionist tendencies, might be a similar case for you as well. Embracing the messy, embracing the imperfect, embracing it. Beyond embracing it, welcoming it, leaning into it, sitting in it, embracing that discomfort of it. So even though this might sound really scary for anyone who has been a perfectionist all their life, or likes things in order and likes things perfect and likes to control, we need to shift that narrative around messy, around imperfect, around not being complete. Because the truth is, in that imperfection is authenticity. That is where the beauty of life is. That's where authenticity is, and that's where true connection can come about. So since this idea of perfection really doesn't exist, if we're striving to be perfect, what we're doing is we're faking it. It's literally a fake way to be, because if it doesn't exist, we're pretending, because we're not actually perfect. So therefore, we're not actually showing up authentically. So going back to the social media example that I shared earlier, in the beginning, again, I was very afraid to reveal any flaws, to show up in a way people might be able to judge me or nitpick my mistakes or laugh at me for not saying something perfectly or looking perfect in that post. I got way too caught up in appearing in a certain way that I was not focused at all on showing up authentically as I am. And more importantly, communicating that message that was called to me that I actually wanted to share in the first place. The whole point was to share something and communicate something with people, but I wasn't even focused on that. I was focusing on how am I coming across, not focusing on how can I authentically share this message in a way that feels authentic and true. And authenticity means having flaws. It means showing up imperfectly because that's what's relatable. We can't relate to that perfect person with no flaws. And I'm constantly reminding myself that it's something I'm still overcoming. Like whenever I do want to delete a post that doesn't feel great and that I end up nitpicking after I post, I remind myself I was relatable for showing up authentically. Then I zoom out and I remind myself it's about the message. It's about being authentic. It's not actually about me. Also, that being imperfect means that I'm being real and authentic. And that is what's going to help with true connection, with actually relating to people. And this goes beyond social media. This can apply to relationships in your life too. If you're showing up authentically and real in your relationships, which often means showing your imperfections, it means being vulnerable and being real, people are going to feel more drawn to you. They're going to be able to relate to you more. They're going to feel more connected to you. And we can't show up authentically if we don't reveal our imperfections. We're never going to feel authentic if we constantly try to appear perfect because, again, that's a fake way to live, and fake will never feel authentic. And again, who really wants that? Who's really going to connect with that person anyways? So as uncomfortable as it might feel to wear our flaws on our sleeve and to reveal them in our relationships or on social media, just remember, imperfection is really just authenticity. Okay, third way to learn to love imperfection. Imperfection just means opportunity. What do I mean by that? Imperfection is where the opportunity for growth lies. Without any imperfections in our life, without any mistakes, without any of the messiness, without all the ways that we can improve and be better, there would be no room for growth. There's no opportunity to even have goals and to get better and to learn and grow from this messiness and these imperfections. Just think about it. If every single thing was perfect in your life, if you had the perfect relationship, if you were absolutely perfect at work, if you had the perfect diet, the perfect body, the perfect workout routine, had the perfect life, where would there be room to get better? Where would there be motivation to set goals and improve in certain areas of life? And that is what life is all about. Life is about learning and growing along the way. And there wouldn't be any learning and growing if we weren't living in the imperfect, in the messy. There would be no growth. We would literally be stagnant. We would be bored in that perfection. So when we see imperfection in this light, as instead viewing it as opportunity instead of something negative, we can welcome it. We can say, wow, that mistake, that failure happened for a reason. Or, wow, things feel like a little bit messy right now because I am meant to grow through this change, through this transition. And it makes it exciting. It doesn't make it something you want to run away from or squash immediately. It's an opportunity for growth and for change. Think about when you first started anything, first thing that comes to your mind. And think about how bad you were at that thing. Like what comes to mind for me is when I first started teaching yoga, I was so bad. I was so insecure about any friends coming to class, about everything that came out of my mouth. I was just very insecure about it. I was like, oh my gosh, people are going to laugh at me because I said that wrong, or oh my God, I forgot what to say. And I was just overthinking and I was not good at it. Versus if I showed up to my first yoga class ever teaching, doing it completely perfectly, I killed it. I was super confident. I blew it out of water. There'd be no room for growth. There wouldn't be this exciting part of the journey where like every class you get a little bit better because you learn and grow every step you take. It would take the excitement out of teaching away pretty quickly if I showed up perfectly on that first one, because where is the excitement in the room for growth? I wouldn't be able to show up every week being like, okay, how can I be a little bit better? And how can I take what I learned last week from that mistake and try to be better this time? There wouldn't be those action steps that actually builds our confidence. It builds our self-esteem because we're getting better every single time. But we couldn't get better if there wasn't anything to improve. So the imperfect, the messy, the mistakes, failure, that is where the opportunity lies. So whatever it is in your life that feels far from perfect right now, that feels messy, that feels very imperfect, if that's something that you value, that is where the opportunity for growth lies. So don't see it as something that you failed at in life. See it as an awesome opportunity to take steps in that area to implement awesome change, to be better, and to feel really great about yourself along the way. And it makes it so much more exciting and so much more fun rather than just staying stagnant in that quote perfection. And finally, fourth way to really live in the imperfection. A quote that I love by Sahil Bloom, he says, "Don't let the strive for more take away from the beauty of enough." Instead of chasing perfection, we can accept enough. So again, just like there's no end destination in life, there is no perfection. It simply doesn't exist. So if there's truly no perfect end destination, if there's truly no perfect circumstance, if we're chasing perfection, we're going to just constantly be chasing. We'll constantly have tunnel vision ahead of us on what we need to do more to get there, on all of the mistakes, flaws, room for improvement. We have tunnel vision on all that's wrong, all that's left to still do, because it's an endless journey to reach that perfection, because again, it doesn't exist. And this is good, right? Like we said in the last point, that's what makes it exciting, because the imperfect means that there is opportunity to do more and to be better and to grow. But what we don't want to do is just constantly chase that quote perfection and have such tunnel vision on trying to meet that impossible standard that we never allow ourselves to actually feel proud of the progress that we're making, to actually celebrate along the way. So if perfection is our base standard, if that is our goal, that's what we will feel settled in once we get there, we're never going to allow ourselves to actually feel proud and good along the way, because we're just going to constantly be focused on trying to achieve the impossible, trying to achieve that perfect and constantly chasing that, rather than allowing ourselves to celebrate along the journey, along our progress. And by constantly looking ahead, also, we're never going to be present for the journey, because we're constantly just tunnel visioned on the future, on trying to perfect everything. And again, this immediately takes us back into lack mindset, rather than feeling abundant in what we accomplished today, who we showed up as today, and feeling enough today. So instead of focusing on all that's undone, all that's still left to do, instead of constantly chasing, what if we actually accepted that today we've done enough? Today we were enough. Today we are enough. We can celebrate our small wins, celebrate our progress, and feel enough while also still feeling motivated and excited for what's to come. But if we're chasing perfection, we're not going to feel enough. We're not going to be able to celebrate that progress and those wins, because it would feel like we failed because we haven't, quote, made it yet. But instead, let's live in the imperfect. In the imperfect, we can actually feel enough if we welcome imperfect into our life. But if perfection is the standard, if perfection's the goal, we're never going to feel enough. We're never going to feel like we are enough or like we're doing enough, because we've set ourselves up for an impossible mission, an impossible chase. So our new standard is living imperfectly. Remind yourself with this episode, with these reminders, imperfection is how we can live fully. Write it down, shout it from the rooftops. Remind yourself every single day when you find yourself drifting back to those perfectionist tendencies to come back to imperfection, to live authentically, to live fully, to feel enough. Ending with a beautiful quote here: "You are perfect as you are, and you could use some improvement." That's by Suzuki Roshi. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. Tune in weekly for more realistic and relatable shifts to live a more fulfilling life, and I'll see you all again soon.